Welcome, everybody. Good day from around the world. We're excited to have you join us here for another episode of VCTV. I'm joined by an esteemed panel of investors and entrepreneurs from around the world who have come together today to speak about some very important topics and what's happening in and around the world today. We're going to be specifically going over transportation, travel, and marketplaces. What's happening, what's to come from both the entrepreneur and startup side to the investment side. So you can know how to invest or how to navigate this storm and where to present yourself or pivot to in the coming future. And a quick shout out to our team here at LA Token, Elena, and the rest of the team who put this whole magic show together. And thank you to the audience for joining in today. If you have any questions, anything, we are live. Feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll try our best to answer them in real time. But we do have some outstanding guests with a lot to say. So without further ado, I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host, and I want to go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, let's welcome each and every one of our speakers today. We're going to go family feud style around. So Jean, welcome to the show. If you could provide a quick introduction of yourself, who you are, who you represent, and kind of your quick thoughts on where we are in the space.
Yeah, well, thank you for organizing. Thank you for inviting me. Well, I'm Jean-Jacques, as my name can imply. I'm French, south of France, and based here in New York City. Been in banking slash VC and other entrepreneurship endeavors for the past 12 years or so. And yeah, we focus in AI investment, both in direct investment, fund investment, also secondaries, and also my semi-specialty is as a dropout engineer and pilot. I look at mobility, aerospace, software and hardware. I know hardware is not that such a nice word to say in VC investment or VC landscape in my part of the world, but that's what I try to push. And in terms to answer your question, what's going to happen? I mean, that's a great question. Now, I mean,
it's a loaded question.
Stock liquidity will shrink and stock will drop in value. Some people try to manage their fundraising quite okay, even during the pandemic. Obviously, biz dev is going to be tough, but the rebound in Asia is quite, since the epidemic is probably quite contained, almost over in part of Asia. So it sounds all right to me. I'm quite optimistic as a person, so maybe I see the glass half full here, but it sounds like June or July will be the end of that thing, and hopefully a nice fall to come.
Well, thank you and welcome. We're excited to have you. And as someone who's had a lot of experience in hardware investing as well, I am welcoming diving into that topic with you. And so next up, Macelanio, you are all the way over on the other side of the pond. Welcome to the show again. If you can, please give the same introduction, who you are, what you do, and quick thoughts on the space.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, Max is fine. I know my name is quite long. It's not that easy to pronounce. So I'm an entrepreneur, business angel, turned into venture capital, hope by the end of the year. We are raising our first early stage fund. As an angel, I'm pretty much agnostic. Software and hardware doesn't make any difference to me. I love both. And yes, I'm very much in tech, but because tech can apply to everything. And in COVID era, we do understand that tech makes the difference, and tech really much makes the difference now. So, and in terms of what we do, we also, as an advisor, we work with startup, as we work with SMEs and well-established company and governments, but all is around technology in any way. Uh, from my perspective, I mean, yes, that's a very challenging time, but challenge comes with opportunities, and I do believe people and companies, because companies is made by entrepreneurs, the one who can manage this again very challenging time, they can very much make a difference for the next decade to come. The best company came in 2000 in 2010 when we had a very big crisis. So I do hope we have a very smart entrepreneurs coming and solving problems and give to us new opportunities to invest for sure.
Absolutely. And just like a fine wine, this could be a very nice vintage year, as many investors have said, based on exactly to your point, what happened in 2008, what led to 2009, 2010 investments that prospered here in the coming years.
Yeah, indeed.
Exactly. And Alex, welcome back to the show. We had you on last week as we were talking a lot about biotech, medtech, what was happening in the world around those areas. And we're excited to have you back here talking about this next wave of mobility and marketplaces. If you can, give a quick intro and again, your thoughts on the space.
Sure. I appreciate you having me back. Thanks a lot, Cal, for hosting and moderating. For everyone, my name is Alex Cater. I'm representing the Cater Investment Group, which is a consulting and growth equity investor that's based in the US and in Asia. So I split my time between the US, Korea, and Thailand. And our focus is on basically three functional focuses, which is finance, operations, and technology. And we invest in tech as a service and a platform, particularly real estate services, travel hospitality. We have a portfolio company called Asian Voyages, which is focused on the destination management space, which handles everything from when groups get on the ground in Asian countries, handling lodging, logistics, and professional networks, particularly targeted towards academic institutions and corporations. On the transportation side, we have been focused again on in a consulting capacity, working with cities to develop business requirements that influence policy and software requirements for that platform, and then also moving into comparative analysis of various transportation routes and solutions for mobility. Great to be here. Thanks.
And Alex, we're excited to have you, and we're excited to dive into some of that along with some of your background you shared last week, as well as I think it's pretty relevant to this entire space. We just had a surprise guest join us, which I will introduce very shortly. But before I do, Marco, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. If you can, again, a quick introduction on yourself and kind of how you got into, and your quick thoughts on the space.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here as well. So my name is Marcos Lima. I'm a father of two little boys, live in Miami, originally from Brazil, and have been in business development pretty much for whole my career. I represent Virtual Equity Partners. We are a private equity with two basic features. First one, we are specifically focused on the middle market. And the second, we are like 100% hands-on operator of our investments. Now trying to jump to how we see the outlook here, right? I think that there are some basics that pretty much everyone agrees, right? So there's gonna be a valley, and there's a question of how long this valley is gonna last. The sum of this area is gonna be the impact that we see in everything. But for me, the most important part is the disconnected links, right? This time that's going to be imposed on every economy here, and the debate on what's the best approach for that. And we see pretty much heated discussions everywhere, every day. It is impacting and disconnecting many links, right? I think that economies that are able to somehow protect these links from perhaps being stressed but not disconnecting they will likely have a lesser impact than the other ones that are really seeing more companies breaking up. And this is a matter of time, right? This is happening now, and how much longer it lasts is going to continue disconnecting more, right? And I say that because the companies, the economic environment, although they are not the most important, or not the whole ecosystem, right? They're just a player in the middle of all that. But they do have a fundamental role on engaging all society, our economy, and continue generating value for everybody, right? So that's for me the most critical point, which is this disconnected links that will happen. And I think that, in my opinion, also being optimistic that there are different ways to fight about any problem, I think that everybody should also be concerned about how to protect these existing links so that the effects are not so long-lasting as it might be.
And excited to dive in, not just protecting, but how do we reconnect those links in various ways as well. So welcome to the show, Marco. Excited to have you. And next up, our surprise guest who just dropped in, which we're happy to have. Tilo, welcome back to the show, I should say. If you can, quick introduction and your thoughts on the space.
Yeah, sorry, I was not able to find the link, so some minutes late, but better late than never. So yeah, my name is Tilo Bono. I'm here in Berlin, Germany, and the startup capital, at least from Germany. And with Piabo, we are supporting really the most amazing companies and tech founders in the world, from Silicon Valley's Stripe, GitHub, Evernote, many others, to the tech heavyweights here in Europe. Also, of course, in the space of marketplaces, travel and transportation, obviously, super interesting and amazing areas. And we're helping them with all kind of PR, social media, content marketing, business influencers, whatever gives them the attention that they deserve. And that's obviously something that's very exciting. And I'm also invested in more than 10 venture capital funds globally, from Japan, Singapore, Vietnam to, of course, Los Angeles here in Europe. So I think I have a very nice overview about the landscape and what's going on and the different kind of portfolios all around the world. And of course, also partially I invest also directly into exciting companies that I feel should get more attention and more funding to support many, of course, also here future technologies.
Awesome. We're glad to have you back as well. Feels like we're getting the band back together. We've got a few alumni from the past couple of weeks, so it's exciting to see everybody and new speakers as well. And speaking of new, Prasant is joining us all the way from India. It's a pleasure to have you. Please, an introduction and a little bit about your thoughts on the space.
I'm audible to everybody. I am from Mumbai. First of all, it's good that all of us are COVID-free. So we are healthy and lucky enough to be enjoying this conference. Thank you, La Token, for giving me this opportunity. I have around 22 years of corporate experience where I had been CEO for brands like Triumph, which is a lingerie brand in Germany. I was heading MetLife Insurance in some divisions here. And then last 9 years, I've started my own investment banking company. And we have channelized 37 big projects in last 9 years. Our specialty has been infrastructure. And of late, we have done some very good investments in retail. And on this COVID-19 in fact, I have some lot of good news from India, because as you all know, India is not that impacted compared to Europe and US. And despite a huge population of 1.3 billion, we still are, in terms of numbers, are not in top 10 yet. And there's a lot of new things that are happening on investment front, which I can share in all the three domains that we are going to discuss. And I have some good numbers to share. And thank you all for giving me this opportunity. Let's have a fruitful discussion.
Absolutely, and we're again happy to have you, and happy to learn more of what's happening on the ground in India. Next, I'd like to welcome up Mitchell. Mitchell, are you there with us?
Yes, I am.
All right.
So I'm calling in from Boulder. I help represent a kind of I would call them like a pool of funds from Alumni Ventures Group. So I do some deal sourcing related to just about any sector, any stage. Most of it tends to be on the earlier stage for each of the funds, and then I do some startup advisory as a advisory board as a service, if you will, for earlier stage tech founders to try to help them navigate, typically right before seed and or all the way right before Series A, and then sometimes post Series A. So have some thoughts on probably a little bit more on the transportation and travel. I stopped really kind of seeing appetite, interest from some of the investment side on the travel space, waiting to see kind of where things end up. Some of that interest just flipped to any of those companies relevant for a future of work or more digital. So I don't know, I feel some might navigate. And then I'm also seeing similar applications in sort of like the built environment when people are going to go back to work or offices, also sort of towing the line into the transportation travel space. So curious to see if some of that actually does happen. So happy to be here.
Yeah, same. I feel like I have conversations about that almost every day here in the Bay Area. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into that and see what others are thinking as well. Last but not least, Tess, welcome back to the show. A frequent guest, almost a co-host at this point, which I'm honored to say. Quick introduction and also just your quick thoughts on the space of mobility and marketplaces as where things are today.
Perfect. Thank you. It's always great to help and speak on such great panels with Lapotin and also with the rest of the panelists. So I'm Tess Howell, founder of Tess Ventures. I'm based out of Palo Alto here in San Francisco in Silicon Valley. And I've been investing in early stage startups. So I've been super fortunate the last few years, had several exits through some of my other entities that I invested in. Some of them are in VR tech, construction tech, biotech, and also I have actively been investing in marketplace as well. Notably, I would say one, Kid Pass, that is actually a marketplace for kids' activities, and also Van Gogh, which is a marketplace for essentially Uber for kids. So speaking on these panels, it's always good to talk about each of my portfolio company and kind of how the thinking around why I invested, which I'm happy to share more after the intro. Essentially, I invest in early stage, proactive, really help out the founding team when they want to and help accelerate. My background started as Startup University with co-founder, and then by the time we graduated, had several acquisition offers. So that comes from the entrepreneur side, and the investment side was for me to pay it forward. Spent time at Stanford, 2011 to 2013. Really got the best mentorship, and then built out a great ecosystem of founders and VCs globally. So that's where I'm most excited to help out. My investment thesis are in several areas. Definitely one is in emerging markets, and been focusing on Latin America and also in Southeast Asia, predominantly I would say Indonesia, because that's a country that actually you would need to dominate if you want to dominate Southeast Asia. So I've been very fortunate, have a lot of friends in those areas. And regulation tech, it's also something that I think I've spoken a lot about. One of my top football companies, Log and Indeed, they also have been doing privacy security for enterprise companies. And also they have a go-to market strategy, self-serving using WordPress. So happy to talk and share more about all of this as we go forward on this panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for being here today and giving your time on a Monday just before your partner meetings or anything else that you may have. But I want to kick off with our very first question. And that's kind of, now that we've gotten your opinions on what your thoughts are, really want to dive deeper on that and talk about what will survive and what may come out on the other end. I mean, as investors, we're constantly seeing pitches. We're constantly having to think ahead, whether that be 6 months, 12 months, a couple years ahead as to where we want to start investing capital. And for those of you who represent other investors or funds, are having to think in that same forward momentum. So as we look at the next 6 to 18 months, what survives in mobility and marketplaces? Or in the same respect, what starts to thrive? There's a lot of opportunity that may come out of this, and where can entrepreneurs be thinking about pivoting, right? To use that old phrase, or as investors, where can they think about looking at how to deploy capital or markets to start paying attention to? So Max, I want to start with you with that question. I mean, you're in Europe, but I know you border both North America and Europe as well, and a little bit into Asia. What survives and what thrives in marketplaces and mobility over the next couple of years?
Thanks for the question. Very good one. I mean, I spend most of my time between Europe and Israel, where this is where I do most of my business, and also where I do advise mostly of startup. And I mean, I really want to spend a little bit of time in mobility, because I do believe now it's a big deal. As I was reading and talking to a couple of startups yesterday, and this seamless end-to-end trip, which is extremely important now. So I mean, mobility as a service, for example, we can talk about that. And I mean, right now, especially people with some disabilities, I mean, they have no idea where to go, how to go, and all this problem we had today. This is a very good time to create actually a worldwide platform for me, where everyone can share, open a platform, where everyone can share data. And if I'm a traveler today and I want to go to New York, and from my place to the place I want to reach, I would like to know everything. I mean, I would like to know if I can take a bus. I would like to know how can I self distance myself. I would like to know how, if I have disability, how can I reach this bus? How can I, for example, in London now, if you want to get into the bus, you need to get from behind. You can't get from close to the driver because self distance, all this kind of stuff. And it's not for everyone. So mobility is almost everything. We can't stay without mobility. But let me say, it's still very old fashioned, And yes, we try to match data, but they're not very well done. And I can challenge everyone if you let me know now if I want to take a bus in London, which is quite a tech city, where if I can go seamless without any problem from A to B, absolutely not. Actually, it's going to be a nightmare for everyone, even for the most healthy guy. And yeah, I mean, mobility is a big deal. And creating a platform where everyone can share data provider, data users will be absolutely great, and I think should be a must right now. And in terms of marketplace, I mean, I was reading number yesterday. I think travel and transportation, they're going to lose a kind of, if COVID lasts for another 12 months, 70 million jobs, 70, a 2.1 trillion in revenue. It's something, I'm Italian, 2.1, we don't have 2 trillion in GDP. So that's the number. We are not, we should be one of the G7. So it's not a small number. So we need to rethink everything. And marketplace, and for marketplace, what I mean, it's always digital marketing, digital selling, all this kind of stuff. We should understand better how we can apply technology to travel. How can we apply technology? For example, just I was talking to an entrepreneur, which is now, he came back to me, say, actually, I want to start, raising new fund. This guy, they do marketplace for ski holiday. Always been the most effective, because maybe where everything started was ski, mountain, when COVID was first starting, expanding and spreading everywhere. But again, yes, we are very good in platform. We're very good in selling tickets, giving services. But when you reach the hotel, tech is over. There is nothing to do. You start from the beginning again. And the reality is there is a very mismatch between, let's say, the hardware part of the travel and leisure and whatever, and the soft part. Soft part works very well, but the hard is not that much. And I mean, if we last for another 12 months, I mean, this guy, they go, I can't say everyone bankrupted, but I mean, we're very close to be. I mean, I don't know any business in travel that can handle 12 months without revenue. I don't know. I mean, they're not Google, they're not Apple, they don't sit on big cash flow at all. I mean, this guy, maybe they work with networking capital. I mean, it's completely, it's a very challenging. And in terms of marketplace, I mean, I think tech startup are the well positioned. And I was talking to a guy before coming to the call. They do marketplace in Spain, in Barcelona, where we work a lot there. And he told me he's skyrocketing the sales, skyrocketing, because all these shops, they're going to them because they don't have a very well-established website. And if their website makes no sense, because if you don't have leads, you can't sell. And they all go to them because they provide one platform where they can sell everything, much smaller than Amazon, but pretty much the same. And yes, I mean, and I think this is another opportunity. Take Amazon. Amazon is having so many problems. I mean, it's the endless problem. And this guy, they will lose a lot of money because, you know, yes, you sell a lot, but you spend even more in CapEx and OpEx, all this kind of stuff to keep selling. So this is a good opportunity to small marketplace to get on board and start selling, because people are looking for new ways to sell, because Amazon, I don't think we should rely only on Amazon at all, especially because maybe now it's back, but until a month ago, we can wait up to 1 month.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I mean, infrastructure, right? There's an opportunity in infrastructure. There's an opportunity to open new marketplaces and to leverage technology, which Jean, I mean, you mentioned you do a lot in, I've looked at a lot in artificial intelligence. So same question. I mean, what's coming ahead? What's going to survive? What's going to die? But how will some of these companies, or how can they better leverage technology to maybe thrive a little bit as well?
To get back to you to the answer, yeah, I think mobility will have a bright future, same as marketplace. I mean, everything that is seamless without contact, and I'm thinking about both micro mobility, all the thing we saw in Lime and all those micro urban mobility might have a bright future. Fast transport, frontier tech. Probably I saw a lot of down run though in that space right now, but still I think we have a bright future in there. AI, data science, on my end, what I see, it's cleaning data. We're gonna emerge of that pandemic with a lot of new data which we don't necessarily know how to handle. So cleaning, interpret it, and visualizing it for large corporate or other type of institution is going to be a new, not a new, but a considerable interesting vector of investment. In marketplace, I think marketplace and biotech are the two verticals that are making money these days, or growing. So why not? I mean, this is not necessarily my area of expertise, but I get the feeling that people who developed those habits to get everything delivered, well, if they move from 70% of everything delivered to 90, I don't think they're going to go back to 70. They're going to keep on having more and more deliveries, more and more reduce their consumption to brick and mortar shops and move that to online, whatever they buy. So yes, that will have growth. Again, less expertise on that, but yeah.
But I think you bring up a very interesting topic. I mean, the key word there is data. So as Max brought up the use of technology, right, and improved infrastructure, you're bringing up the word data. I mean, right now, this could be one of the biggest data grabs and experiments for retail, for marketplaces, for transportation than ever before. And there is a ton of opportunities to do something with that data. What, is what we're talking about. But I mean, you've got, to Max's point, you've got more retail data, or again, marketplace data, that you may have ever had. I mean, you just had 60 days of Black Fridays, just packed into just the last past 2 months, and being able to understand how that's going to transform areas of grocery delivery to fitness to certain essential goods or non-essential goods, whatever, right? You can reshape how those marketplaces look, which is pretty interesting. And Alex, I see you shaking your head. Give us your thoughts on that. Where else are we going? What opportunities start to thrive out of this?
Yeah, I think that there's a multitude of ways to look at this in terms of where we are in the cycle, right? In the short term, and I'll take this from the element of kind of hospitality and transportation. In the short term, when we talk about mobility, of course, now mobility and the movement of people is definitely not resemblant of how it has been in the past. The question is, how much is that going to change in the future, and how do we look at behavior changes and pattern, and what does technology do? So technology definitely has a place in that, and possibly changing those behaviors in the long run. It's interesting because right now we're in 2020 now, right? And in the U.S., that means it's a census year, as in many other places with in many other places as we look at population movements. And one of the big questions that come out of this, and that impacts mobility, is how do people change the way in which they are working, right? And whether or not do you have to have these massive commercial footprints in big cities like New York or San Francisco, or can you move to a more remote type of working environment? And so along with that, what happens, right? You have the ability to think about people who may lose the idea of having to live close to the headquarters, or downsizing the footprint and moving to tier 2 cities, which quite frankly had been some of the movement, at least in the US, that we have seen in the last 2 years, where you have cities like, I think Mitchell's in Boulder, Salt Lake City, things like that, that are developing. And so when you take that one derivative further, you've seen a lot of mobility solutions targeted at big areas, a lot of them piloted at where you are, Cal, in the Bay Area. Now it's talking about, okay, what would be the next opportunity to move, and who has the ability to move into those growth areas as they occur. I think those are some of the things that are significant and that we'll see. And as our perspective on this, where we are right now in terms of moving and the growth is a little bit different than John. I'm not sure, at least in the US perspective, we're not as bullish of bouncing right back into the way things were last year. We think it's going to take a little bit of time to do that, maybe 2021. But once that does happen, it's a question about where are the trends moving and who has the ability to help ride that wave and support that business growth as it occurs. And the people and the companies that are able to do that, supporting either B2C directly or B2G, B2B to some extent, are the players that we see having a lot of growth potential by doing the mapping, collecting the data about where people are going, what those behavior trends are, how they're changing, and being able to capture that with sustainable solutions.
And I see Mitchell turned on his camera. He is ready to have a comment. But and Mitchell, to you, I don't even need to tee it up. It's all you. Go for it.
Sorry, I had to step out for a second. Yeah, on the marketplace side, I'm seeing some interesting collaborations pending, although they haven't really fully materialized, on the last mile grocery delivery, the whole food kitchens. Anything that has a kitchen is now an extended kitchen, if you will, and how that's impacting just how you consume food, and some of this might move into any kind of hospitality space. So basically, you see a lot of people just reimagining any kind of physical space that might be conducive for a post-COVID environment, how they can reimagine that. So everyone now, people have been talking about this for a little while, especially when the IoT started kicking in. Like as soon as you can do remote anything and have visibility into something, you can turn anything into like a physical warehouse in the middle of nowhere, or just turn anything into, more distributed so you can have more real time. So maybe you could compete with Amazon, et cetera. So now you might have smaller scale fulfillment. What I see a little bit, people trying to experiment around, is in the small consumer packaged goods, or where you can make things locally. There was a little bit of movement now, actually a couple of years ago, and I'm trying to reconnect with the founder about, there's just a lot of idle resources around, everything from making furniture to, making a certain type of material goods. So I'm trying to have conversations with like Steelcase, Herman Miller, anyone who was doing like furniture they are now trying to like, okay, maybe we can distribute some of this capability to closer to the consumer. That was an idea that people had way back, even when you just had a MakerBot. So I feel like someone's going to come up with something fairly interesting to reimagine how to reutilize some of these spaces, and anything that had a physical asset that was making something, turn that into as a service.
Well,
nothing's popped through yet.
Yeah, and I think it just came out, I want to say sometime either over the weekend or last week, that Etsy, the website Etsy, has become like the secondary market for baked goods, local baked goods, where people are reselling these. I make banana bread almost every weekend now, and people are out there selling banana bread on Etsy as an additional marketplace, which is kind of unique, right? That local, hyper-localized market has started to come up. But I think you've got a target there around furniture and then the ghost kitchens as well. So it'll be interesting to see. And Marco, what are you seeing in your realm right now? I mean, you're bouncing back and forth between a few different areas and in kind of that close bubble around Latin America. How are marketplaces and mobility starting to shift, or even that hyper localization as well?
Yeah, I think that Latin America specifically, the difference there probably is just more aggressive impact, perhaps, right? But I think that the trends are moreover the same. Just getting back to what Alex was saying about the change in people's behavior, and perhaps just, as the need of being physically present for working is not necessarily there anymore. So people just relocating to tier 2, right? I think that my framework to think about that is that this pandemic is really demanding all industries to be better at delivering and serving the needs that they propose. So in other words, I think that the industries that are succeeding now are the ones that are either shortening or they are already shorter in the supply chain that they have versus whatever else, that's compared to that. Let me give an example. When you're working today in LA, you're gonna have to first take care of your kids, it's gonna be somewhere else. It's going to be far away. Then you're going to have to commute. It's going to get there and so on. Like the supply chain for you to deliver and serve the need of your work, it's way worse than just remotely working out, right? So that's why it's winning over. But now when you migrate to I think a broader aspect to that, it's the transportation of goods. You think about globalization, right? And what's happening right now? We see our president here really pushing like some different questionable agendas right here and there. And we know that even before the pandemics, he did have a very strong agenda again towards industries here in the US, right? And that's not something that's a privilege to him, right? We see many other countries with a similar aspect to that. I believe that just the need for risk mitigation now that we see in many different industries that are either breaking or at the risk of breaking because of these large supply chains that in one sense made the world much bigger, much more efficient and so on, it does bring a much broader supply chain, right? So I think that just the effect of trying to mitigate this risk and shortening the supply chain should probably surface some opportunities for reverse globalization. Probably it's not going to be everywhere, of course, but you're going to have some new greenfields opportunities again for local sourcing in many industries. I believe that this is happening. It's going to be a question of where, how and who can solve those needs quickly, right? Mm-hmm. The other interesting thing that I believe that's happening now as well, that probably touches more of the topics that the other panelists have mentioned, is how all tech companies or how emerging brands, emerging products, emerging services are connecting to their clients, right? Like media and social media advertising, that's key piece of any of those topics, right? Any of them, they will massively rely on that. You still have TV and these other things that play an important role there, but especially in social distancing, in a lockdown situation, online marketing becomes like the king on that. On this one element, I believe that we are now, again, going through a perhaps positive valley for the ones that are playing there, because as the companies protect themselves, everybody tries to, slow down. Mm-hmm. You see reports coming from Google, the biggest one advertiser there. You see from Facebook, and the list goes on, right? So that this actually brings a benefit in the short term for every company that actually did have a disruption, that actually had a positive effect. In our case, our portfolio companies, they did have a very positive support, thanks God, to what's happening now. Mm-hmm. So in the media side, you're going to see less competition, reduced volume. So it's actually a wide open opportunity for companies playing there. Mm-hmm. However, like everybody that's not that digital is suffering the heat, and they are going to be trying to fight back and fast to get there, right? So fast forward a few months or a year or so on, I believe that all industries, all companies, the digitalization process is going to speed up. So competition there in the customer acquisition realm, in this online marketing, I believe is going to overshoot as well. So it's probably going to be much higher than what we saw before the crisis. So I think that we should anticipate for higher competition, for better ways to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like, I'm going to have to come there to see how to react to that. But the one thing I believe that's going to be for sure is creativity, right? Creativity will be demanded, big time, so that you can find the right way to grab and to win over people's attention.
Yeah, and Prasant, I mean, you're in India, which is a hyper local market in most cases, from what I understand. What are you seeing in terms of changes around marketplaces or the rise of, and same with transportation as well? Anything starting to move or shift? What are you seeing on a global scale as well?
Thanks, Kyle. In fact, there have been a lot of positives that are coming up in last 3 weeks, if we have to discuss. The loss of China has been really a gain for India, and every day we hear some brands are announcing that they're shifting their manufacturing base to India. And only the German sports brand Vox has announced that they're shifting their. So the key has been that deploy the growth and deploy capital and drive the growth. That has been the key all across the industries that I'm seeing. Since this is a low time, everybody needs to probably put in some kind of investment and get mileage out of that. Now, if I have to discuss all the three industries that we are talking about, travel and tourism, for example, is around $350 billion industry in India, almost 9% of the total GDP. Now, this has definitely impacted, one of the most impacted industry, because the airlines are not working, hotel industry is down. But here there is a huge potential. There are 12.8 million new tourists that had come to India last year. And medical tourism itself is around $6 billion. That's a huge industry for India. Now, what is happening in this? 42 million jobs were created last year. So, looking at that, obviously the numbers are not going to be the same because the industry is taking time to recover. One of the biggest investment that has come in this industry is the top Indian airline, which was owned by government, Air India, was on sale for last 3 months. But now, because of this COVID, the sale is a little bit delayed. But there are 3 potential buyers, and the investment size is almost $7 billion. So that probably should go through in June, and one of the top Indian airline only probably would take that. So that is one positive industry, but obviously it will take time to recover this industry. And looking at the other aspect, what I am seeing is the companies which are having diversified portfolios, they are trying to just restructure so that the loss-making units, probably this is the right time to get rid of and consolidate their focus on the companies that which are performing well. The industry which is least impacted, I feel, in our region is the transport industry. Here again, $30 trillion have been promised by the government for last 5 years to invest in India, improving Indian infrastructure. And almost 27 kilometers roads have been newly built or improved every day. That was the pace with which India was going on. But obviously there was a standstill for last 4 weeks. But now again, the country is coming back on track, and the infrastructure work is in full swing. And here I see a lot of development, though there has been a lot of labor transition going from one state to other state. As you know, India is a big country in terms of population, in terms of size. So if you consider India as Europe and each state as a different country, so there has been a lot of transition of labor from one state to the other state. So that would probably impact the progress, but this industry probably would be the first industry to bounce back faster. In terms of marketplace, there has been a lot of activity happening on the e-commerce front because India has forced lockdown now almost for 52 days all across India. So the e-commerce industry, which was growing probably at 12%, 13%, has really grown much, much faster in this domain. And that's what you see a reflection of that in terms of investment. One of the key e-commerce player is Flipkart, which has invested $90 million in marketplace and also to improve the digital payment access. So that is something which is happening big. And one of the biggest investment that has come in retail is Reliance, which is India's one of the biggest company, has attracted an investment of almost $4 billion from 3 different players like Facebook, Silver Lake, and Vista Equity Partners in last 4 weeks, where they diluted stake of around 11%. So this has been a big news. I believe globally an investment of $4 billion must be a talking point in the last 1 month when nothing was happening all across the industry. So I see there is a lot of investment that I foresee in marketplace, specifically e-commerce, the way it was growing. It will grow multifolds, and the market dynamics are changing. India being a close competitor to China in terms of manufacturing. So I believe India, Taiwan, Indonesia, these are the countries which will benefit big time post-COVID. So I see a lot of changes happening in this economic 6 months. Obviously, the most important is the vaccine. When the vaccine comes in, post that, you will see a lot of developments. And I'm very positive about the next three months.
Yeah, I mean, to mention the amount of billions that have been invested in the past couple of weeks, I mean, Facebook, Visa, Silver Lake, as you mentioned, all put in significant money around payments and e-commerce. And Tilo, to that point, how are you seeing fintech and technology in general, similar to Jean, how are you seeing this all play out globally around marketplaces and mobility in the future of them? Seeing 4+ billion put into one company in India shows some big strength. So what are you seeing on the fintech front and how that may play a role in the future of these areas?
Yeah, I must say that obviously B2B solutions seem to be a bit more resilient than B2C in general in these times. And especially as the virus is kind of also an accelerator for digitization in general, right? A lot of companies thinking here, how can they, of course, be more efficient and effective in their business? So that's definitely something that we see. And when you're talking about fintech, I mean, of course, I just talked the other day with the CEO of a very big fintech company here in Germany. They said, of course, their products are often used for companies and also private person when they're traveling, when they go abroad, etc. That right now obviously didn't happen. And so I said, especially in a country like Germany, which is very decentralized, has a lot of Mittelstand companies. A lot of these services from startups are used now, and sales cycles are shrinking sometimes from, let's say, 6 months to 6 weeks, or maybe even 6 days, because companies are looking for a solution, how they can save money, how can they optimize and digitize processes. So I think especially for B2B companies, that can be like a kind of golden year, as everyone now is very open-minded to look at these solutions. But also when you look at the mobility and travel sector, of course, a lot of things will change fundamentally and sustainably, even if there's a vaccine, if there is a change, because I think now it's learned that a lot of meetings may be obsolete because you can do them via Zoom. And even people who are skeptical now forced obviously into the solution and the situation and see, oh, maybe I can also hire people now in other areas. So what we see is that also companies in the prop tech space, there's a bit fear that maybe people will not need so much office space in the future, because now everything can be a bit more distributed. So there's definitely a lot of change, but still I see even in times of crisis, investments are made. So in several of our funds, and also I see it by myself, we made also in the last 2 months several investments. So even without meeting sometimes personally, things happen, and it's not the case that everything stops, right? So it's just that there are different kind of structure, different kind of meeting formats, and I think that a lot of them will sustain and will still also be there in a couple of months, even if the crisis then maybe like medication, vaccine, etc., is there. A lot of things will still remain and still stay. And again, I think especially for B2B companies, that means also B2B marketplaces, B2B fintech companies, etc. I think there's really a kind of, maybe it's also the beginning of a golden ages. They are now becoming the new normal for also big enterprises and Mittelstand companies that maybe had a bit more traditional approach on certain things, but now see that they have to realize that they are a new normal and that they need new tools, new software, new cloud software as a service product. You mentioned earlier big data, and that's absolutely the case, right? We see several companies that are now focusing on making use of all these data that are collected in companies and going into there. Also in the climate change, the next big thing after COVID that comes back on our table, right? Companies that measuring the CO2 print, the carbon neutrality, and that's really fantastic and amazing what technology now brings to the table here.
Well, and every company is going to be a fintech company. And back to data, we've got massive data around climate or environmental changes, since we all haven't gone anywhere. But you know, to one of the points that you made, you guys have done investments. You've made investments, right? Things have changed in terms of your process. So as an investor, how are you looking at things differently in these markets, for instance, or how has your process changed so that those entrepreneurs that are out there can adjust and fit into these potentially new norms for a little bit?
I mean, the entrepreneurs, I think they have changed quite quickly their decks to being kind of COVID ready. So that's always fascinating. I mean, we see also same in PR, right? We see always all 6 months there are new kind of trends, right? Everyone has done the whatever YouTube off or the Airbnb off or the Uber off, and now everyone. I mean, that's the good thing with entrepreneurs, right? They see a market, they see a potential, and go all in. So that's, I think, really fascinating. And I mean, what we see is again that a lot of entrepreneurs now really trying to figuring out what are the niche, what are the markets that are growing, and what other sectors. I mean, I think last call we talked about blockchain, the company that I made my last investment actually going tomorrow to the notary. It's an equipment as a service company for leading industrial manufacturers, and I think that's a typical case, right? With this software from ZK Systems, now the Mittelstand company can really make completely develop completely new business models, and that's what they're right now looking for, right? And not just selling their machines and their services just for, like, say, a lump sum or like a random amount of money. They can make it really equipment as a service and really charge for the actual usage. So it gives them new opportunities to onboard new clients, because they can also now going more to the long tail. So that gives new business opportunities, new monetization models. And that's, I think, what now where the heart starts beating from an investor and say, oh, that's really something, kind of software tool that we need right now. And you can see this in different sectors, but it's really amazing. And when you have then, of course, these kind of deals coming from trusted sources, where you see maybe it's not even necessary to meet these people, because there are two other investors that in the past maybe saw them, met them. So you have at least a kind of good personal due diligence on the team, and then you can look at the numbers and go with them through the other points. It's good when you especially in these days, I see that investors more and more share deals and looking together on deals, because they're coming from different aspects and can so make it up that you maybe not have the time or the opportunity, obviously, to meet them personally. So it is a bit wind of change, and there are different kind of things that you more rely on, of course, your network on trusted sources. I mean, you would maybe not so often go into a deal that just came randomly via LinkedIn or via cold email pitch, and more rely on your network, on your friends that you already work with and you trust.
That's a great point. And Tess,
that's the old thing where you say you should make friends before you need them, right?
There you go. I mean, relationships are everything. And when we can't be physically around each other and have to do Zoom and any other platform of your choice type conversations, your point, the relationships mean everything. And Tess, for you, same question. How are you looking at investments slightly different in these, shifting rapidly marketplaces and industries, but then also going forward here in the next 6 to 12 months?
Definitely. So I've been focusing on definitely the future would need biometrics and facial recognition. And in this COVID-19 days, it's spot on because of contactless tech. So my regulation company, Login ID, that I've invested in, and they recently just closed their round.
Oh, Tess, looks like we might have lost you. We'll come back to you when you do come back on. But Max, I want to bring the same question to you that I did to Tilo. You're raising a new fund. You do angel investments. How are you looking at things differently now as an investor? And Mitchell and Prasant, I've got some questions similar to you guys as well. But Max, how are you looking at things differently right now as an investor, so entrepreneurs can ready themselves?
First of all, going back to what we talked before, I do believe we should miss this opportunity, because any crisis brings a lot of opportunity. And we do a lot of stuff we do really don't need. I mean, we carry on almost all the meeting online now, and I can't find a big difference almost at all. And I do believe you can still doing the due diligence online for 90% of the diligence. And so, yes, in person, at least the last meeting would be nice, because you need to meet people. And in the end of the day, any stage of investment, even if B is C round, I don't do B by my own, and eventually the fund is going to be early stage up to pre-A round. You talk to people, you don't talk to companies, first of all, whoever they are. You invest in entrepreneurs, you don't invest in companies. So, and the process in terms of how technically it works, I mean, I find it quite comfortable, honestly. And actually, I don't believe I'm going back flying back and forward like mad because I realized that I can do a lot of stuff online and I don't need. I mean, actually, I don't need at all. And I'm missing flying. Yes, I love flying. I don't know why, but because it's different. Because you bring guys for dinner. You drink a little bit of good Italian wine. It's different. I mean, of course, I'm a very socialite guy. I love talking to. I love you need to in some way have interaction with the people around you in any kind of investments, but also it's a good way to work, in my opinion. But yes, we can take out a lot of stuff of it and doing something more efficiently. Also, because we need to understand that this climate has to be helped, and if we reduce flights, and also if we can understand that we don't need to bring 5,000 people in one building, but we can maybe stay with 4,000 out working maybe in the countryside. And because technology allows this, it's going to be much better. There is nothing to do. Less congestion, less pollution, everything will be better.
Yeah, and sorry, just to jump in real quick, Mitchell, to that same point. I mean, if we're not all traveling as much, we're not all going to these conferences in big masses. Someone that does a lot of direct deals, but then also work with several funds. How does this change, or how has this changed how you may be looking at things as an investor, or how the investment process may have changed for the funds that you work for?
Yeah, so I think I haven't talked to a lot of the principals recently, kind of post, but you just gave me an idea. I want to do some follow up with some. I know I get asked to participate in a ton of demo days that are all virtuals. Like I could literally probably be doing it every day, every week, if I think even more globally. I mean, sorry, they come in kind of spurts, like little certain weeks or months are more prevalent. So you're seeing that happen more, which is kind of disrupted a little bit. The other thing that I'm seeing is folks trying to do, and I'm evaluating this, like due diligence as a service. So you can just like almost just start to vet companies in a different way, where you have a more of a digital workflow that you may have had to do before: coffee meeting, email, come present in front of people. A lot of that's going away, and then I'm seeing a lot of companies sort of pivot into this virtual event space. One company in particular I might be helping out. They haven't approached me for AVG, Alumni Ventures Group, yet, but they're like, they started off in sort of the gaming space, and they created sort of like a browser-based virtual reality. So we can have this conversation as if we were in an event. Like, I'm going to go to the main stage, but I'm going to have a conversation with Tessa over here on the side. I can still probably hear what's going on in the main. That actually, I don't know if they've done that yet. But anyways, I'm going back and I'm seeing. Actually, one just got acquired, but some of these tech companies that were doing audio, like think of it, if we can't be in front, like things that are going to bug us, like, hey, Mitch is not standing in front of the camera as much, like auto adjust for all the things that are going to make this experience better, you're going to start seeing get added as features. So being able to like actually displace the hearing, and I can hear 5 people, but I can hear them as if I was in a different room, like they'll show up in my right ear. That was a tech that I was helping out. They got bought by, acquired, fortunately, by the theater audio Dolby. They got acquired by Dolby Labs. But had they been right around this time, they would have crushed it, because they'd be like, "Oh my God, this is a way better experience of me doing these chats," and because they use a lot of artificial intelligence to be like, "Hey, let's smooth out the audio over here." And so I think you're going to see another wave of those across every sector, where it's really important. Because imagine if you have to do remote work, like the augmented reality, hey, I'm looking at this, how do I fix this? Some of this stuff has to be spot on, because then you're going to be liable for, well, I thought he said this, or so a lot of this visual. Yeah, the telepresence is going to go, I think, through the roof, and maybe middle persons or entities that help sort of like facilitate better audio, better whatever, and or post like like what we're doing, putting this in the chat is probably kind of clunky. Like, hey, because I put it in the chat, like what Alumni Ventures Group, I forgot they launched a COVID fund. They just recently launched a COVID specific fund. But this whole process can be a little clunky. I think you're going to see some of that. And then someone was going to be like, hey, well, this is way better suited for another industry, like, you know, maybe like gaming or et cetera. Now that like, hey, everyone's just playing or doing remote, and they're trying to figure out, like, there's a stadium technology company. I'm hoping that they're able to pivot into something slightly more different. Or if sports start playing and you need a lot more three-dimensional or cameras, and like, fine, they can't show up, but they're still going to play. Like there's some states in the US that are like, okay, hey, we allow congregating in stadiums. So come have your whatever, like they're competing now to try to have any kind of game, any kind of sporting, because their state is open for you to have people in a stadium.
Right.
So you're going to see some crazy stuff happen like that, but then you're going to try to augment it. And now I think more people are going to, and like, including the stadium owners and well, the people that these middlemen are going to be more open to like, well, we got to do more stuff digitally, whether it's commerce, remote. And now you're going to think like, hey, I have a physical location and I have a remote location, but I can still sell stuff and I can still have a good fan engagement or a good experience. And I think that is just going to be like, that idea is going to be like, well, we can do that too. And we're retail. I'm going to have a fashion show. And then we just sold a crap ton of stuff. And who cares if it's like a physical space? Like, I think you're going to see some creative people going like, hey, it's kind of like gaming meets conference meets blah, blah, blah. But I just sold a crap ton of stuff because it was a different experience and I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
I get to like, I just got to see stuff that I would never be, I would have to go to New York to fly to go do all that. Like those brands are just not in my wheelhouse. So you're going to see some crazy, and I think where the creativity is going to come in is just reimagining everything. And you just cut, and when there's intermediaries that help you package it all together. Yeah. Offline and digital assets.
I'm excited. I mean, the digital assets piece and collectibles as a whole, another topic we could talk for hours about. And unfortunately, we're getting to time, so we'll save that for the next conversation. But Prasan, I mean, same question to you. How are family offices? What's happening in India, and how have things quickly changed around the investment side of things? It sounds like things are still flourishing with billions of dollars being invested. And then after that, I'll come around for everyone's closing thoughts here in just a moment.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. As Max said, you know, every downfall brings an opportunity. And this is the right time probably where a lot of companies need to do restructuring, and the family offices that we manage, we are actively looking at interesting investment opportunities, because there will be a lot of diversification which will be looked into. Restructuring will be properly managed, and companies will focus on the cash cows, where the money will come in from. And yes, next 3 to 6 months are really tough. Each industry will have a different challenge to face. But then there are certain industries which are really flourishing. And Netflix, which has really done well because everybody is at home. So suddenly the advertising revenue of Netflix has zoomed up. At the same time, the subscriptions have zoomed up. So there are also the positive sides of it, though people are sitting at home, but there are e-commerce which is flourishing. Then web series, Netflix is flourishing. So there is an opportunity everywhere. As a family office investor, you have to just be attentive and ensure where is the next unicorn that you can look for, and just focus and consolidate. This is the right time to evaluate your investment strategy and ensure that everything is falling in place.
Absolutely. Where can everyone find you, by the way, as well, to connect with you online?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Where can everyone find you to connect online if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, I have mentioned in the chat, I have mentioned my website, universalclc.com, as well as my WhatsApp number. You
Awesome.
can connect with me.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Tess, welcome back. Same question to you. How have things drastically changed quickly? And then, last thoughts and where people can find you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So essentially, biometrics facial recognition has been widely, put on the radar now due to COVID-19. And that's an area that I've been investing in. So one of my portfolio companies, Login ID, they focus exactly on biometrics. What we have discovered is in COVID-19 days, biometrics facial recognition is even more important in prop tech as you can see, the way we're going to open up doors is going to be different. So think about it right now, the easy convenience of the last few years where we can just pick up our phone without entering a password. So just reimagine this world without passwords. And it's going to be even more prevalent because of COVID-19. It's brought to our awareness about germs and health and prevention. On that note, another company that I'm an advisor investor in is Limpo. They're app science-based in digital wellness and engagement and incentive programs. Essentially, they are able to enable B2B and also B2C. The app currently, one app is able to enable COVID-19 symptoms, being able to track that. And you can also encourage healthy actions so that you can prevent the spread of COVID-19. They've pivoted this into this area. Originally, the thesis and the genesis is very similar, encouraging healthy habits. That's walking more and through, even squats, which is excellent. And with the rise of what's happening COVID-19, they immediately were able to also launch also another technology platform, which is the prevention and tracking. So they're a data-driven culture. They have partnerships with Samsung. I feel that super is innovative, a team that is able to quickly adapt to the situation. So I think, you can see this example as something very good and very encouraging to other, founders and entrepreneurs. So to your last question, Kyle, you can find me at Twitter, Tess Howell 1, and also LinkedIn at Tess Howell. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tess. Alex, closing thoughts and where everyone can find you in this new era of mobility and marketplaces.
Sure. So I can be found on LinkedIn at Alex Cater. And my last closing thoughts on this is just that it's easy right now, just kind of mirror what other people have said. Some of these industries are in a tough time. And right now, the real important thing is to understand where things are going, not where they are. And I think that was being brought up with login ID, facial recognition, e-commerce, and expanding upon those things. On our side, we're looking at FinTech platforms and how those can be used across different operational platforms of transportation means. So I think that those are things that we're thinking about very actively. And just keeping that in mind, I think, is not only something that's good for now, but good overall.
It's a great point. And again, thank you for joining us. Mitchell, same question to you. Closing thoughts and where everyone can find you.
Okay, I put my contact info in the chat. So you can find me there. Closing thoughts. If you're in this space, I mean, it sounds like if you're active, I think now more and more like you can find more interesting folks reporting on what some of these pivots are, because people are just desperate to figure out what is taking off and what is not. And I'm seeing some interesting sort of collaborations or maybe even like syndicates forming, because people just pivoting. I get hit up all the time for just there is a lot of intellectual sort of maneuvering, and I get hit literally nonstop with something. Hey, this is the banks. They're going to be drowning doing these PPE loans. They don't know what they're doing. Blah blah. Who do you know in your network? I'm like, wait, aren't you a custom dev shop? Like, I don't know. We built this product, and we're launching with this, because in real time you're seeing people like seeing an opportunity in the market and going straight. So, but it's not getting, I think, reported as much in real time. So what I'm seeing is a lot of people referring to their networks now even more. Hey, are you seeing anything? So investors, I see a lot more interest or collaboration, and even among the investors, like, hey, this is the kind of stuff we're looking for. We're shifting or transitioning. So I think building that community is even more important. And I think I see, at least maybe because I'm being more active, reaching out to other investors or folks, that there seems to be a little bit more appetite to collaborate, to try to help uncover and even maybe move founders in a certain direction. So tell them like, hey, if you can shift over here, we're seeing some stuff, given what you have, you might, and then meaning that we might be more interested in you, or have you thought of, like, and that seems a little unusual. I think people are trying to find they're looking for nuggets of wins. I don't know if that's super specific, I was trying to think of an example, but anyways, in
think
general, that's what I'm seeing.
I think that's great, and I think we're all seeing the same thing. I know I am as well. So it's a great piece of advice. Marco, same question to you. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you to connect?
Yeah, I think that at Virtual Equity, what we are doing is really trying to grab all the opportunities that we can now as well. So the one field that we are investing a lot now is in beauty e-commerce. We do have investments in this vertical already, and it's really performing extremely well now. And we are actually just pursuing the strategy that we already had, which was M&A expansion for this investment. So we're pursuing this through the crisis as well. So that's going to be like our way to take the opportunities during this crisis, right? Mm-hmm. You can find us at Virtu, VIRTU equity.com. Mm-hmm. And be happy to connect for any type of exploration of ideas. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jean, same question to you. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think to get back to one comment that was at the beginning of the conversation about supply chain, I think we're going to see a huge or a bigger gap between the people or the companies that can manage the Zoom and the whatever disconnected and solution in the world. And obviously we're all a bit biased because we're dealing with tech companies, but I have a bunch of Fortune 500 let's say stakeholders where when that thing hit, it was pretty tough for them to figure out how they could chat because WhatsApp couldn't handle more than, I don't know how many people. And we're talking about $1 billion or multi-billion dollars revenue company. So I think the gap between those two worlds is gonna become even bigger with and is gonna grow. Now, finding the next unicorn solution, sure, this is probably gonna emerge some pretty interesting solutions to solve those problems, but I get the feeling we're still gonna have to help and sustain the traditional economy in the best way we can, because it without the resilience of let's say the main street, is going to be tough for any disruption to happen if no one is there to buy it. So yeah, that's the end chat, and contact me. My name is quite easy to find on LinkedIn or social network. I can post my contact info on the chat.
Yep, definitely post in the chat, and then we'll post. We'll have a post on LinkedIn here shortly, connecting everybody as well. So, Max, thank you as well, Jean, for joining today. And Max, same question to you: closing thoughts, and where can anyone find you?
Thank you. I mean, for me, the big edge is going to be AI, machine learning, and even more augmented reality. Now more than ever, big tech is going to be for the next 5-10 years dominating all the space and robotics by far. This is where I'm spending most of my time. You can find me on hsmi.london at Max Sulpizzi, and you can type, if you can, my name and surname Massimiliano Sulpizzi on my LinkedIn. You can't find Max on LinkedIn. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna get it at one point. At one show, I will have it perfectly. Tilo, close us out. Your closing thoughts, sir, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I think there might be also some areas that nobody talked about that's super interesting. I mean, let's think about biotech, for example. Let's think about topics around this, also health tech, digital health, the space in general, things that are connected with us, like longevity topics, psychedelics, etc. What we all see in the right now, also having massive interest from investors. But of course, there are also evergreens like AI and blockchain, etc., that are definitively will have that time. And I think it also here, like with the virus, it will be like continent per continent. It will be not everywhere at the same time. Obviously, AI is very big right now. For example, in China, when you look at in Asia in general, here in Germany, and in Europe in general, there are a bit more restriction when it comes to data protection, privacy, right? And so every topic has its, of course, local colors. So I can be found on every channel: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you feel comfortable. If you feel to connect, no borders here.
Very nice. Do you take pictures on Instagram by any chance?
I had this too. I also interview sometimes founders there. I mean, it depends on the channel, right? I mean, on the target group, I recently talked there with someone, an expert for beauty tech, who talked about the future of the cosmetic industry, which is obviously Instagram, an amazing platform. For other topics, maybe LinkedIn Live is better, or Facebook, etc. So, of course, you need to select the channel that's right for your audience. Yeah?
Every single investor is shaking their head right now. So to the audience, if you're there listening, take note that the medium, the channel, it doesn't matter anymore. Anywhere you can start building a relationship, anywhere you can start reaching out to connect is an opportunity to begin that relationship, grow that relationship, and potentially pitch or have discussions on your business and where it can go from there. All these investors, including myself, were reachable on all social medias. Feel free to connect with any of us and share your pitches, cold or warm, it doesn't matter. Look to build those relationships regardless. Speakers, thank you so much for joining us today from around the world. Really appreciate your time on this Monday morning, afternoon, and evening, depending where you are in the world, or super early morning for you, Prasant. We do greatly appreciate your time. And to you, the audience, thank you so very much for tuning in to another episode of VC TV. A shout out to Elena and to the LA Token team for putting all this together and making sure everything happens smoothly. I'm Kyle Ellicott. Thank you. We'll be back here later this week with another edition of VC TV to dive a little deeper into some new and emerging markets as well. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody.